It's time for Great Info to Know with your host, Roger North.
This is Great Info to Know. Today's going to be a very special show. It's going to be a very different show than what we usually do, although a lot of our shows are very different, quite honestly. It's going to be on health. It's going to be where we're going to look at energy healing. The title of the show is Spiritual Surgery, Hope or Hype. My guest today is Chris Keeler. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Chris is a quantum energy practitioner healer who specializes in finding trouble areas in the body and stressors within the area using the pendulum and chart method of dowsing. Chris spent about 30 years working in the printing and newspaper industry before retiring in 2007, and this opened a new door to him in the world of energy healing. Okay, and with that, I want to bring Chris into the call so we can talk about some subjects that are way out of the box, especially in terms of healing. Chris, how are you doing?
Perfect, Roger. How are you doing today? By the way, it's Kaler with a Mennonite
Kaler. I'm all sensitive to that, and I always hate to mispronounce someone's last name. Okay, Kaler. I stand corrected. Okay, Chris. It's a very exciting topic because just kind of a little prefacing it is that when we think of healing, we tend to think of just being physical. But, I mean, there's a lot of research that shows that, the precursor of physical body is an energetic body. So maybe we do a deeper level of healing at that level. And so this is a topic I've long wanted to talk about. I heard you on Janice Barcelo's show.
Okay.
And that's where I originally got the idea. And I've actually had her on my show a couple of times. So I wanted to really go over this with you. So, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about yourself first and how you got into this?
2007, I retired from the printing industry. First wife had a rare disease called scleroderma, and she had passed away about 8 years ago. And that enabled me to retire, put me in a position where, I could make a decision for myself. And working really hard all my life, I thought, this is a good time to take a break. And with her passing, it left me kind of wondering, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Where am I going to go? What's going to happen? And sure enough, the old saying goes, one door closes, another door opens. And when I did retire from the printing industry, I did meet somebody who works in this industry, let's call it, of alternative healing. And I just saw what this person was doing with it, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. I just felt a really big draw towards it. Like, this is something I need to do. And sure enough, as I started getting into it and learning a few different modalities and learning how to muscle test and learning about a few different things, I was picking it up really quick. A lot of people in the industry were commenting, that I was picking it up quick. And I did meet some other people in other cities in Canada, in Alberta. I saw what they were doing with it, and I thought, this is a really good business model. This is something that I could use to, number one, help a lot of people with health problems that can't get help through the medical system, and also use it as an income. And I just kind of went with it. Ended up meeting a few more people and taking some more courses. And within a year's time, I had people knocking on my door at home asking me to cure their asthma, cure their diabetes, cure their arthritis. So I thought, okay, it's time to get myself into a clinic scenario where I am today in Winnipeg, Canada. I operate Monday to Friday, 9 hours a day, and it is a very successful, probably 90% success rate with all the people I work with, and it's quickly becoming a phenomenon worldwide where I do this energy distance healing through the telephone and through Skype, and I now have clients all over the world in North America. Lots of people in the United States will call me. Quite a few clients in Australia, Europe, Russia, you name it. I've got clients in the Middle East also. There's a lot of people in the Muslim community who are starting to realize that there is benefits to energy healing. So it's overnight almost become quite the success story.
It's really interesting. Okay, well, can you tell me kind of how your healing system works? And because, like I said, I have read quite a bit about that. I guess we have the astral body, etheric body, and so forth. And so I guess we have energetic bodies, and this is kind of like the final body or something. Does that have something to do with it?
Yeah, it's exactly what it has to do with it. The system that I use is a two-part system, and it's something I developed myself, so it's very specific to the work that I do. What I've done is I've taken the modality of dowsing with a pendulum. A lot of people have seen a pendulum in action where people hold it and it'll swing a certain way, it'll swing in a circle or whatever. And I've developed a set of charts that pinpoint with crazy accuracy exactly where the health problem is within a person's body and what is causing the health problem. Working with a pendulum for over 6 years now, become very, very acute with it, whereas it is very easily able to find what the health problem is. And that health problem can range from anything from a spiritual component. When I say spiritual component, it could be a ghost, a spirit, something that is attached to your etheric body, something that may be attached within your body that is causing disruption with the frequencies in your body. It could also be something dark or demonic on that level. The devil does exist. I'm here to say that I have done some exorcism type work where by removing these dark energies, all of a sudden the health problem does go away. Now, these people, their heads did not spin around 360. They did not puke up green stuff. That is all for the movie, let me assure you. So I go to that aspect. Also, I go into the aspect of possible extraterrestrial contact with your body. So those things all come into play. There is extraterrestrial consciousness that does play havoc within our health. So I do that aspect of things. Then I also go to the other side, which is a physical symptom. So a health problem can consist of a spiritual problem, and then also you go to the physical, like a bacterial infection, fungus, viruses, parasites are a very big one. Then I look at heavy metals such as calcium. Calcium is probably one of the number one killers of a lot of people with heart problems, and I do remove calcium on a daily basis from people. So once you find the area, let's say you have diabetes. So of course you want to look at the pancreas and see if there's something causing disruption within insulin production or insulin delivery or something of that nature. So you're going to find that the pancreas is the area to work on. But then what is causing the pancreas not to produce properly? Is it a virus? Is it a parasite? Is there a negative energy involved? And quite often there generally is both involved, especially in a chronic health problem like diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis of those natures. So once you dial in exactly with a pendulum what to work on, where the problem is, then what I do is I use my sacred geometry tool, which consists of pyramids, different crystals within the pyramids and magnets and different makeup of the energy. Then what I do is I just take this pyramid. Now the pyramid works in two ways. It works as an antenna to harness and control the quantum energy that is all around us. Now the quantum energy can be described as God energy, zero-point energy, quantum energy. It's a consciousness of photons that is all around us we're able to use at our disposal for us or against us. Okay, we can get into that later.
Mm-hmm.
But once you call, yes, basically once you can control this quantum consciousness and have it do things for you, it'll go in and it'll neutralize and it'll remove and vaporize any problem within your body. So if there is a virus there, by telling this virus to go away through the quantum consciousness, it just disappears. And a lot of people do feel results almost immediately, if not within a day or so of a treatment.
Wow. Fascinating. Do you believe that every physical ailment has got like a psychological or energetic component to it? I mean, is it basically the stepping down where we have like the unresolved psychological issue or something, or unresolved, or an energetic parasite, and it shows up like, say, an energetic parasite or a health problem? Is that the way it works?
Absolutely. 9 times out of 10, there is, let's say, an emotional component or a mental component or some type of energy disruption. And that can be caused by planetary influences. It could be caused by magnetic poles. It could be caused by EMF radiation. A lot of times a person will have a health problem because their grounding is not right. They're not grounded to the earth properly. So I'm able to go in and find these areas of grounding that need to be connected on an energetic level. Once the energy is cleared out, then you can go after the physical problem.
It's very interesting. It all makes sense because it all works together. You talk about like the spiritual negative energies. So I take it these are like, I know they talk about like etheric parasites. So do these parasites then manifest as parasites like, say, hookworms or liver flukes and things like that? Is that just a physical manifestation of, say, an energetic parasite?
Absolutely. When there's anything demonic involved, anything of a dark nature, and generally any kind of negativity in your body is a demonic component. If there is a parasite involved and there's a large parasitic infestation, and no matter what you do, taking a parasite cleanse or anything like that, well, they won't go away. There is an energy component where this negative consciousness is causing the parasitic infection to happen. They can't just wave their magic wand and snap their fingers and have you be ill. They have to create a scenario where there's something physical in your body that is making you sick. So energetic parasites, absolutely. Do I work on them every day? Yes, I do. There's an area in your aura called the causal body. The causal body is a template of your physical body. So if there is a negative energy within that causal body, your physical body reads off of it, and you're going to have the symptoms, and it's going to manifest into your body. The best way to describe what the causal body does is in a case of phantom pain. Let's say you lose a leg in a car accident, but after that leg is missing, you still feel that the leg is there. You still feel pain within that leg. That's because that leg still exists within the causal body.
Sure. Well, that also makes sense because what this ultimately comes down to is cause and effect. What you're really talking about is that if you have one, you have the other. So if you have, because of people, because I've done things like do parasite cleanse, I've done a lot of things. We'll discuss that during the second hour. But what it really comes down to is that if you don't remove the cause, you're still going to have you're still going to have the effect. So you're saying, well, people do like a parasite cleanse, for example, and that's all well and good, but the problem is they don't actually get rid of the energy, maybe the unresolved feelings, maybe they got some kind of entity attached to them or whatever, for want of a better term, and so they're still having the problem. Is that basically what you're saying?
That's exactly what it is. There is a cause and effect. You're absolutely right, Roger.
Okay. The thing is, a couple other things. How common is this? I mean, how often do you really run into this? Is this like a rare thing, or is it fairly common where people have got some kind of entities attached to them?
99.9% of everybody has entity attached to them. That is the thing that a lot of people have a problem getting their head around, is how can I have a spirit within me? What's going on here? I read the Bible every day. I go to church. How can I have the devil within me? The devil, any kind of negativity, any kind of dark consciousness, is just a form of consciousness We all have the good and evil side within us. If we're going to call it a game, it'd be a game of duality, where there's light and dark, good and evil, right and wrong, that type of thing. So that negative consciousness is the component of 99% of all illness.
This makes really good sense to me. One thing I've actually I've done a lot of writing on the subject of the shadow self, and one of my personal beliefs is that we're obviously going into a very dark period, or we are going to a very dark period of wars and police state, and I believe that ultimately the energy behind this force is our own collective shadow self. And one of the things I've been writing a lot, and I've been posting a lot about this whole issue of us by healing our shadow selves. That's how we heal ourselves. And to me, this is a very big issue and an enormous issue. So I can really relate to what you say. Now, when you say 99.9%, about how many observations is this based on? How many patients have you worked with to come to that conclusion? Because that's a pretty big statement.
I'm going to say probably hundreds. As of late, within the last 4 years, the amount of negative things that I'm able to find, everybody, 99.9% of everybody has this negative attachment. Now, for myself, on a daily basis, I come into my office and I do testing on myself. I ask where is an attachment on my body, and you pick something up when you're sleeping. You pick something up when you're standing in line at the grocery store. There are spirits that are all around us that have not crossed over into the light, and they're just hanging around and looking for something to do, looking for a body to get into, to use as an attachment source, to feed off of our energy, to enjoy life again, and everybody picks something up.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember reading that one of the reasons you should avoid sleazy environments is that because you're more likely to pick them up in that kind of environment, some kind of a dark entity. Do you find that true? Like, for example, avoiding areas that are like bad neighborhoods, or avoiding disreputable places?
I don't think that entities really discern. I mean, I can't speak for entities. I've never really been there, but you would have to think that I don't think it really matters where you are. You're going to pick something up. If you go to a church, are you going to pick up an entity? Yeah, there's a good chance you could, because if there was a funeral in that church and there was a spirit in there, they'd still be hanging around and they want to attach onto you. So I don't really think it matters where you are, but you would have to think that if you're in a dark place, you may pick up a darker entity, of course.
Mm-hmm. That makes very interesting. The second part of this, by the way, is going to do a live demonstration on me, so I'm actually a little bit nervous here because I've got some energies, I'm sure, around me, so we're going to look at some of my physical issues and see what's going on. So I'm going to really expose myself, but I do a lot of that on the show because I want to encourage people to really go in depth and understand what's really going on. I like to go first sometimes. Anyways, I have a couple of the things I want to wonder about is you talk about these energies. So are you able to see people's auras, or how does that work? Do you see energies attached to the auras, or what exactly do you do?
For me, all the information I get, 100% of it is done through my pendulum. So on myself, I don't see auras. I don't really see energy fields. I don't smell anything specific. I don't sense anything. 100% is done through my pendulum. That is my medium. That is my modality. That's the way that gives me the best answers. There are a lot of people who can see into the aura and see colors and see things that are off balance. But if you look at that, and let's say you see some black in the aura, well, of course, anything black is going to be a negative thing, but to identify what it is the key here, okay? If you can identify exactly what it is within the aura, so if you see something black, is it the devil? Is it Lucifer? Is it incubus? Is it a curse? Is it a voodoo spell? You have to be able to identify it. Universal law says that if you identify something, it has to leave. And that's the way that everything works within the universe.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, exactly. Just like hide and seek. If you're playing hide and seek and you say 1, 2, 3 on Roger, but it's really Chris, well, Chris isn't caught. The exact same thing happens in this world of quantum energy, is that identification is the key.
That makes so much sense because I was thinking my own self where it's when I have an unresolved issue, and I've been doing a lot of journaling, And once I really start writing things down and really understand it, it just goes away. And it's like I think a deep level. It's like they have a lesson to teach us, and it's like for one of the better example, let's say you take a computerized test and you learn some material, and then you take the exam afterwards. And what happens is once you pass the exam, you go on to the next thing. So I've kind of wondered, about the whole idea, if what's going on, if we have these lessons that we have to learn, and once we learn the lesson, we no longer need the experience. Would you agree with that?
100%. That is one of the big reasons why, in a spiritual form, we're here on this planet. A lot of us are from different star systems. Our energy, our soul, is from a different star system. So we come to this planet as a density in order to learn a lesson. Okay, we have past lives that we've all gone through. If you believe in reincarnation or not, I mean, this is where I come from. In a past life, if we did something wrong, well, we're going to reincarnate back into this body to get it right, to learn a lesson. And once we completely learned that lesson and got everything correct, then we don't reincarnate anymore. Now we become either, for some people, maybe an ascended master, or we just reside in the etheric realm where we enjoy ourselves all the time. But basically, yes, we are here on one aspect to learn a lesson.
Yeah, it's very interesting because one of the things I've been trying to do, and I've yet to be successful, is I want to do a show on the universe as a computer simulation. There's some very fascinating work that's come from the University of Bonn and also University of Vermont, where they're finding that if they go look really deep into space-time, they're actually seeing like little grids, and it looks like the movements of particles and so forth are actually like in a virtual reality game. And I know David Icke has talked about this in a great deal of detail, and I've written a lot on this myself, where it's like this is a learning, like a virtual reality learning simulator that we're in, and when we learn a lesson, then we keep on having to have the experience until we learn the lesson. And to me, it's all fit at a very deep level. And like I said, I've been doing personally a lot of work where I've been playing hide and seek and identifying what's going on. Are you familiar with the work about the universe as a virtual reality simulator?
Let me put it this way. You're right on the money with it. Basically, a lot of us have been told that everything around us is a hologram. Okay, so
exactly.
I'm hanging on my desk right now. That ain't no hologram. That's real. That's wood that was harvested from a tree and milled down and made into a deck. There is a body within us, within our energy, called the holographic body where I work in. Now, this holographic body can have a program playing over and over and over again. When you go into the holographic body and find out what the program is, you can neutralize the program and replace it with another program. Now, that sounds a little bit far-fetched, but I'll go a little deeper with it. I work a lot within the DNA and chromosomes within people. And I look at the DNA as the computer program for our body. The brain is the processor. The chromosomes are finer points of the program. So we can have a program for our immune system to not work for certain things. We can have a program that triggers cancer at a certain age. There can be programs for everything within our body. There can be programs for weight gain. There can be programs for hair loss. Once you understand how all of this works within our body, energy level, and working at an energy level, you can change those programs. You can adjust them. You can find the problem and make the adjustment.
It's very interesting. One thing is this also is touching on the subject of epigenetics, which is where by the thing is we I know, like, for example, Bruce Lipton's done this work on the biology of belief, where he's talked about by believing certain things, we trigger certain parts of our genes to get active or get active in a certain way. For example, I know vitamin D is known to turn, I believe, 10% of the known health markers in the human genome, approximately about 3,000 to 4,000 of about 30,000. And so the whole idea is that, this is also, like, for example, connected with the idea of mind control, where it's genetics, because the whole system is like a transmitter-receiver. And you turn on, and by what you turn on, what you turn off, or how you turn it on, it determines basically what kind of results you get.
Oh, that's 100% right. I do work within the epigenome. There's also an energy body called the epigenomic field within our aura that can affect the epigenome, which is basically a tail within the histone of the DNA. So whatever attaches to that tail will trigger a program. So if it's at the epigenomic field level, you have to clear it out of there, and then you can go into the DNA and clear those tails out and clear out those programs. So there is a lot to do at the epigenomic level, which means above the gene.
Really? So how does that work? So you're saying in the DNA there's this histone?
Yeah,
Can you go into a little more detail? I'm fascinated by this, how what you're doing is working at the genetic level.
Well, everything ultimately is at the genetic level. It's just a matter of understanding it for what it really is. Scientists nowadays, do pretty darn good. I'm going to give everybody a pat on the back when it comes to doing research. They look at things at a specific level, at a specific way, at a scientific way. But if you look at things at an energetic level, it really takes the veils away of what really are. So if you look at the DNA as a computer program and work with it within there at an energetic level, that's when all the changes will take place. I have a brother-in-law who's a very big cancer researcher in California, and we definitely have some interesting conversations around Christmas time. They just don't want to look at different ways of that because that's not how they're trained. That's not how they do things. For example, the amount of cases that I get coming into my office over the internet where people have a parasitic infection, they've had it for 10, 20 years, the doctors just don't know to go look for a parasite. When
Sure.
they come into my office, we do a live blood analysis and a quick test, and sure enough, your body is riddled with parasites.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not surprised. I suspect most of us are. Like I said, I suspect it's very common because we live in a very parasitic world. I mean, if you go look at what's happening, the way we're very systematically, even energetically, being parasitized all the time. We have a political and financial system that's based on parasitism. To be quite blunt about it, I've done many shows where I've discussed this in real detail. So it makes sense, and that this physical parasitism is a manifestation of energetic parasitism because it's cause and effect. I remember reading something where it's like, I think it was in the Soviet Union where they're talking about there's before a cell was formed, they could actually a blue light or something where you could see the precursor, the energetic body, and it's like a step down in energy to create the physical. Are you familiar with this? And I know William Tiller of Stanford, or formerly of Stanford, talked about that the universe basically. I remember you ever read the book The Holographic Universe?
No.
Okay, in that book, he talks about the universe being a holodeck, and that basically we have a step downing of energy, and we have these different steps, and the final step down is the physical, and and that you have these energy precursors. I mean, is this basically what you're discussing here?
Things start happening at the etheric level within whatever area of the aura or your energy bodies. It starts there, picks up steam and goes through all the other bodies. And then it hits your physical body and it creates this manifestation. Now, there's a lot of things that don't go through that way. If you go to a restaurant and you eat a piece of raw chicken and you get salmonella poisoning, well, that is direct ingestion of the problem. It's a common cold. You shake somebody's hand and you rub your eyes, you're going to get the cold. So there are things that are exceptions to that rule. But basically, anything that is on a chronic level, things that are there, they go away, they come back, they go away, they come back, that is definitely going to be within the energy bodies that you need to work with them.
Yeah. Well, also kind of a related idea to that is that, like say the raw chicken or the cold, is if you have strong enough immune system, you have strong enough energetic body, because someone else could eat that raw chicken or have someone sneeze on them and they don't get a cold. And so, I mean, right there, it also doesn't show the strength of the energetic body?
Oh, absolutely. There is attributes within the energetic body that help the immune system. If you have a program in your holographic body or your DNA that gives you a weak immune system or a weak immune system to bacteria or salmonella, then you're going to be somebody who's very prone to get salmonella infection or problems in that area.
Yeah, because even in cases like that, I'm saying that there's still the energetic component. And like some people are obviously more susceptible to certain diseases than others. So, I mean, I think this is a very big point, is that there's always this energetic component. And yes, sometimes there's an obvious physical component. Someone sneezed on you, someone, You ate some food that was, it was tainted or whatever. But there's always a deeper level complaint because not everyone gets ill. One thing I've been really looking at a lot, and I've been looking at, is what I call subconscious beliefs. In other words, secret beliefs. And this is a very important idea I want people to really get. And this is that people think if you ask someone what their beliefs are, they'll probably say things very positive, like I believe in this, I believe in that. It's all very good sounding. But my whole idea was that the way you find out people's real beliefs is by reverse engineering them. For example, let's say someone's at work and they're under a lot of stress and they go overeat. Well, then they have a secret belief of the way to deal with stress is by overeating, for example, just to give a simple example. And so what you do is they might not consciously have that belief, but that's a program that they're implementing, basically. And so what I've been doing with myself personally is I've been looking at my own, what I would call secret beliefs, my subconscious beliefs, by looking at my behavior and what I'm doing. For example, I got very upset at a guy a couple of weeks ago, and I realized, because of some of my own belief systems, that caused me to, over-escalate something that should have been a minor problem. And I can look back on my life, and I've been kind of reverse engineering, and I suspect that one of the things that we've got going on is people have got secret beliefs that cause a lot of their diseases, and they're not even aware of that. What do you think about that?
Well, absolutely. You have to consider everything, and there's things that we can't even imagine that we need to consider when it comes to any kind of issue, whether it's a health problem, whether it's an emotional issue or a mental issue. There are so many things that can be involved, and the belief system is definitely one of them. And you're right, it is a type of program where we keep on repeating this belief system, applying it to our day-to-day lives, no matter what it is.
Sure. And this, like I said, just the example of the overeating, now that's one I can relate to also, overspending of money. Where it's like you start looking at yourself. One thing I've been looking at personally, for example, is I have a lack of energy. I've been doing a lot now recently with hormones, which has definitely been helping me. But one thing I was actually writing about was that if you have for want of a better explanation, say a 10-dimensional problem, and you're only trying to solve it on 2 dimensions, you're not going to be very successful. For example, let's take the issue of low energy. Well, there could be, for example, just my own case, there could be some kind of etheric, parasites attached to me. There could be physical parasites. There could be, heavy metal toxins in my body. There could be nutritional deficiencies. There could be, issues, of thyroid or hormones. So there's a lot of different aspects, and the problem is if the problem is on like 10 different levels, and you're only identifying 2 levels, like say, getting up, for example, getting like taking testosterone supplementally or something, you're not really going to be very effective in dealing with the problem, because you have to kind of deal with the problem at all the levels it's at.
That's correct, and that's what my system does. Is it starts at level 1. What is the first problem that needs to be removed to get to the result? And
sure.
During a 1-hour session, I'll probably clear about 8 to 10 different levels to get to the problem.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to having that experience and getting some idea of what it's like. The thing is, because I want to emphasize this, that we have our problems there are many dimensions, and some of it is going to be physical, or at least even for maintenance, because it's like a lot of people, they'll do like a big cleanse, and they'll do emotional cleanse, and they'll do, they'll learn some great lessons. They'll do like a workshop. They'll do a physical cleanse, an emotional cleanse. Then they'll go back to eating the same diet. They'll go back to the same environment, and they'll just retoxify themselves. So I think people have to kind of be aware that, no matter how good Chris is, you still got to do the work on your side, and still got to continue after you're finished working with him or someone like this, because otherwise you're just simply not going to get the benefits, the long-term benefits, because you can obviously reinfect yourself. You have to be aware of that.
Well, one of the things that I do is I do look for mineral deficiencies, mineral excesses, and different nutritional aspects also, so that problem does not happen again. Specifically with mineral deficiencies, if you take calcium, for instance, everybody thinks that calcium is this wonderful mineral that we all need to take, especially women over 50, because you're going to get osteoporosis. Consider this. if you're taking extra calcium in your diet, is that calcium absorbing into your bones? That's the one question you need to ask. And how are you going to know that other than doing a bone density test? So you do a bone density test and your bones are still low on calcium, well, the doctor's going to give you more calcium. So if you're taking all this calcium that's not absorbing, where is it going? Some of it may be eliminating out of your body, but a lot of it's going to be building up within your veins and arteries, your heart, your muscles. All of a sudden, now you're getting some muscle spasms and cramping. All of a sudden, now your blood pressure is going up a little bit. You're taking all this calcium, but you need this calcium because your bones are suffering. So the absorption factor for minerals is more important than the mineral itself. So with every mineral, there's a cofactor that helps the absorption. Now, with calcium, we all know that, you need to take magnesium and vitamin D for absorption. How many people out there know that the real culprit is a silica dioxide deficiency?
Sure.
Silica dioxide is the second biggest element that our bodies are made of. Number one is carbon. Number two is silica dioxide. Silica dioxide is crucial for the absorption of calcium.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that before. This reminds me of the work of David Wolfe, where he talks about that the silica is transmuted apparently into calcium for the bones. And so for strong bones, he talks about things like horsetail or oats or things like that are high silica foods. One other related idea is he also talks about the idea of nanobacteria, where he's saying what causes people to age and develop things like arthritis, and to a large extent, is often what he calls nanobacteria, which I guess is basically like, for want of a better expression, coral reefs inside of our bodies, where it's like this calcification, very similar to like what goes on outside the Great Barrier Reef, but at a much smaller level. Are you familiar with that work, and if so, what do you think of it?
The nanobacteria scenario certainly is there. And I look at it as an aspect of things that are aerosoled into chemtrails. There could be a nanobacteria. There could be stuff put in the water. There's a lot of different aspects to a nano, and nano meaning microscopic level. And it is something that's generally man-made, put into the system to help make us sick.
Yeah, I understand that. I remember one day, it was about 2 years ago, I woke up in the morning, like 4 in the morning. I literally couldn't breathe. And for almost about 5 minutes, and I ran out of my apartment just in my just in my underwear, and knocked on someone's door, desperate, because and finally I was able to get my breath back. But I woke up, and I wonder if that was chemtrails. It's happened to me maybe 2 or 3 times in my life, where, and I'm wondering about that, because that's a very big issue with the chemtrails potentially having nanotechnology in them, nanoparticles. Unfortunately, because of the very sinister plans of the global elite. But people who don't know about chemtrails, I suggest them when we go to a website like Infowars.com and really look that up, because it's a very large area. But I understand what you're saying, where there could have very well been a man-made thing. Another thing also is that I've heard like cell phone towers and for example, right now, I have a Wi-Fi in my apartment. I'm talking to you, and I've got my obviously I'm on the web. I've got my Wi-Fi going. Is that a big issue too? Where the Wi-Fi causes health problems?
You're talking about EMS and ELF frequencies, Wi-Fi frequencies, microwave frequencies. Now, all these things do enter our bodies on a daily basis. We're bombarded with all these different energies and different, even from the cosmos, tachyon energies, and all these different things do bombard us. Now, our body's grounding system is designed so that if something comes in on an electrical or energetic or radiation level, it can leave our body. So if you're grounded properly, these energies will come in and leave. How come these energies affect some people greatly and they don't affect another person the same way? That's because one person may be out of ground. Now, there's 2 issues that need to be considered when you talk about grounding. It's not just touching the ground. Connection number 1, called the bivaxis. The bivaxis connection is an energy connection that's connected at the root chakra, and that energy connection goes into the earth. This connection is created 6 weeks before you're born. Wherever your mother is standing, boom, the body creates this connection. That is a ground. Now, there's another area for grounding It's in the chakra system. It's called the zero chakra. Some people call it the eighth chakra. I call it the zero chakra. And that chakra is created 1 foot below your feet, and the vivacis connection goes through that chakra to anchor it in. So if these connections are made, then there's much less chance of you absorbing these energies and then building up a static charge within your body. There's a lot of people who are sensitive to electricity that is within the wall. So if you have an outlet that with no plugs in it, electricity is still coming out through those walls, and it can affect you. It can build up a static charge, create a sensitivity in your nervous system, and there's also an easy way around that. Number 1 is grounding. Number 2, if you take tiny little magnets, put them within the wall outlet, it'll stop electricity cold from coming out of that wall. And you put a magnet in there, you'll actually feel a pulsing on the wall that this electricity is going back in.
Interesting. I have in my room, I've got these things I put over one of the outlets. I got a thing called Less EMF Company. I bought a company called Less EMF. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And you can put these like electromagnetic stoppers, I guess, and you put them over one of your 2 outlets, and then to alleviate that. I don't know how effective it really is. I have to really check into that. I'm not really certain, but I like the concept, and I really need to work more on that. One thing you mentioned is grounding. There's a gentleman named Clint Ober who wrote a book called Grounding and sells a number of products. I actually have his grounding sheets. When I sleep at night, I sleep on the grounding sheets, and I make a point of touching the earth on a regular basis. Like I'll go outside my apartment and I'll put my feet on the grass for a little bit. Or yesterday I was down at the beach and I was lying in the sand for probably about an hour or so. How effective is that?
They are very effective, and I did used to carry a product called Barefoot Connection, and it was a grounding sheet that you plug into the wall, and there's silver thread within the sheet that conducts the ground. Yeah, and they do work very, very well. Now, the whole aspect about this, on a day-to-day basis, we go out wearing shoes. Now these shoes have rubber soles, so we're insulated from the earth. So we're not absorbing the negative ions from the earth that are created with lightning strikes. So when you're in open circuit and you're actually touching the earth, you're absorbing the negative ions, and the positive ions, which are the bad ions, will leave your body. It's an open circuit. When you're a closed circuit, you build up a static charge. When you're not grounded properly, you can build up an energetic static charge. So there's the physical grounding, which is actually touching the earth. There's the energetic grounding, which helps everything else to leave the body. So grounding is a very, very big issue. Now, there's another ground that we need to talk about, and that is your grounding to heaven or source or whatever you want to call it. Within the hypothalamus in our brain, there's an area called the well of souls, or the seat of the soul. That is your connection to the beyond, to the creator, to source, to heaven, whatever you want to call it. When that connection is broken, that's another ground that could come into play that we need to work on.
Interesting. Now, is this area of the brain you're referring to, is this the pineal gland, or is that something separate?
Oh, that is something separate. This is in the hypothalamus.
Okay, well, I know the 2 are right next to each other. So how is this different than the pineal gland? Because I always heard that was the seat of the soul. I mean, they say like the soul enters the body through the pineal. That's what I've always heard.
Well, in this game of energy and of the way people work with it, there could be a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different philosophies. My pendulum tells me that the hypothalamus is the seat of the soul. That's what I work with. Am I right? Am I wrong? It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if it helps with your health problem, we can use your belly button as the seat of the soul as long as it works. So that's the scenario that I create. So that's what I work with, and if I'm wrong, it doesn't matter. The problem is gone.
Yeah. Well, I remember an interesting thing. I remember the Buddha. One time, one of his disciples asked him, "What is the truth?" And the Buddha simply answered, "That which works." So I thought that was pretty good. So it's a useful fiction. One thing also is we help people with these problems. Is also help them, like, with say psychological problems, because often the physical and the emotional are closely related to each other.
Quite often, Louise Hay is a very big advocate of that. There are different modalities. There's one called the emotion code, and there's all these different things that target emotions. Just as a spiritual component can be a large part of things, there can be also an emotion that's involved that causes a negative vibration in our body.
Yeah, I've kind of wondered about that. I've actually studied Louise Hay's work quite a bit of depth. I have her book, You Can Heal Your Life. By the way, phenomenal book. Buy it. I really urge people to do that because it's a great book full of affirmations, and I would actually record a lot of affirmations, and I listen to them while I would be sleeping, and it sounds like trigger nightmares. It'd be kind of funny. I'd have an affirmation like I revere myself, or I love myself, and it'd bring up all kinds of stuff, and I'd journal, and it would kind of force stuff to the surface because I'd listen to it subliminally. It would be I put my iPod at the lowest possible setting. Sometimes I do that also at work. So I found that very interesting because it seemed to trigger stuff in me. So I found it very interesting. Oftentimes, right before I wake up, I would do affirmations, and it's just very powerful stuff. I mean, have you had any experience with that?
Absolutely, I work with affirmations every day, and on a different level. By adding different affirmation energies into the emotional body, it can cancel out negative ones. And that's what you're doing is you're harmonizing different energies together to cancel out the negative one. That's basically how the whole affirmation thing works.
Yeah. One thing, because I've done obviously doing a lot of work on myself, which is ultimately energetic work, if you really get down to it. But one thing I've come to realize is you want to focus on what you want, focus on solutions, do affirmations, be very positive. But when the disempowering, when the so-called negative comes up, you want to deal with it ideally as it arises. You don't want to focus on the negative, but when it comes up, you want to be really just dealing with it very effectively and trying to learn its lessons as quickly as possible. So it's you want to keep your focus positive, but when negative things come up, you want to deal with them right then and there. I find that to be the most effective approach personally. I don't know about other people, but I've found that to be very effective, and this is why I really like the affirmations and positive thinking. I think it's very good stuff, and at the same time, it's not the total answer because you still have to deal with the other stuff because for one of better, the negative, the disempowering stuff there is there to teach us something, and until we learn the lessons, it's going to keep coming up.
That's correct. Our whole life is a lesson. It's a learning curve. So as soon as you're born until you die, there's going to be curveballs thrown at you. Different scenarios to make you learn something, to help you to understand something, to give you an answer to something.
Yeah. Well, one thing also, one of the things also is one concept I ran into was called the language of life, and the whole idea is that you look out and life is constantly trying to teach you lessons, and you look at your situation. What is it trying to teach you? Like for example, I've had a problem with being overweight virtually all my life, and right now I probably weigh about 6 feet tall, actually about 5'11", something like that. And I probably weigh I hate to even say this on air, but probably about 270, I would guess. I get to the point I don't even like weighing myself, to be quite honest. And I've had a long problem with that. My weight's actually been gradually increasing over the years, but at one point a couple of years ago I was down to about 195, and I've gone back up, and I think I've just been getting a lot more stress in my life. But I've always had the weight problem virtually my entire life, except for when I was a little boy. So there's some lessons I need to learn there about why I keep having this problem, and and I'm sure that's an example of something that's a physical problem. It's also an emotional problem, and that there's both components, and there's still some lessons I've yet to learn, which are keeping me overweight and probably depriving me of energy. So although the hormones does definitely seem to be helping, but it's also a physical level. I need to look at deeper levels. So I think most problems that people have are both physical and there's an emotional component. So I'm curious, how does a pendulum work? I mean, is the whole idea is you think something and then it's are you familiar with the work of David Hawkins where he talks about force, and where he talks about where I guess it's you set an intention to the pendulum and then it gives you a yes or no answer? Or how exactly does that work?
The way I use my pendulum is a little unorthodox comparison to many other people who do pendulum work. Now, I didn't take any lessons. I did take a course that kind of showed you how, but I kind of put that course aside because I couldn't really understand it much. It's very cerebral. When I'm using my pendulum, you have to ask a question. Mm-hmm. So if you ask the right question, you get the right answer. That is the basis with any kind of dowsing or muscle testing, you have to ask the question, and you have to ask it in a way that you understand it. It can't be any gray areas or open-ended answers to it. It has to be a very specific black and white question. So when I start, I've got a list of questions that I can ask. For example, I can ask the pendulum, where is the most resistance within the body? Where is an intruder? Where is the lowest level of vitality? What lesson needs to be learned? I can ask, where are aliens? Where are poltergeists? So there's many different questions I can ask, and they lead to a certain way. You know, for instance, tell me you've got blood sugars that are above 20 on a daily basis. Then the focus is going to be what is causing these sugars to be high. So that'll lead to a specific question. It'll lead to a specific answer. So by setting a focus, we're focusing on blood sugars. Now, if you broaden that focus and say we're going to focus on blood sugars, high blood pressure, we're going to focus on emphysema, so you put a whole bunch of things into the mix. They could all be caused by one general commonality, or they can be different problems. So then the pendulum is going to pick the biggest problem first and then whittle it down.
Interesting. One of the things, like I said, I'm very interested in your work both at the physical level and kind of at the emotional level. I mean, for example, myself, I've had a very difficult time being able to establish a long-term, intimate relationship. Having trouble getting a long-term girlfriend. And I kind of look at what issues are going on with that. That would be something. I don't know if you would, if you deal with things like that, or if that. I see, because like I said, I mean, it's all interrelated, and because I sometimes I don't know how to say this without coming off strange. I often wonder if something's kind of blocking me. And one of the things is I interviewed this guy Tobias Lars, and he had this video. And the reason I interviewed him because he had a video where he said, if you want to know God, you have to heal your shadow self. And he says, and this actually, I was interviewing this guy named Mark Passio. And Mark Passio, he talks about the spiritual path as apathetic, which means that you have to get rid of the blockages, basically. You have to get rid of the negatives. And I think this is a very, very important concept. And that what we have is, it isn't so much that it's like we're naturally God-like. We're naturally these unbelievable beings, but we have these blockages, all these barriers that are getting in our way. And I've often wondered if my situation with women is if there's some kind of blockages, and I've been doing a lot of emotional work on that, and I'd be very curious about that, where it's like oftentimes we have these blockages, we're just not aware of them, we sense them at some level. And this also gets back to limiting belief. I had a friend who coined the term success barriers, guy Owen Cook, and what he would talk about, like, when guys, oftentimes they're not successful, say with women, because they have success barriers. They have limiting beliefs, in which I think are these secret limiting beliefs that they're not even aware that they have. And this is actually holding them back.
A lot of times, especially in relationships, is that there can be a vow in place that somebody may have taken. You may have taken that. So let's say you had at one time a relationship and you vowed to love this person for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. So now that relationship ends, and now you have trouble finding another relationship. That's because that vow is still in play. So sometimes you do have to eliminate the vow. Sometimes there is something in place that you have to wait for the right person. Maybe you're waiting for your twin flame. Maybe you're waiting for a specific soulmate. Maybe there's a karmic debt that's being paid. So there is a lot of things to consider when you're talking about a situation like that. Yes, indeed.
It's interesting because this interview would bring up so many other interviews. For example, there's Cameron Day, who Ascension Help, and he talked a great deal about that. We go into this world, we have, like, I think called a life contract, where it's like maybe we make some kind of a deal with some kind of entities, or we're tricked into making some kind of a deal with various sub-clauses and writers and so forth, where it's like, I will not be successful with the opposite sex until I'm in my 40s or something, or I will spend my life, in poverty or something, where we're tricked into making what we call like life contracts. I don't know if you're familiar with this gentleman's work,
yeah.
But you are?
Yeah, I work quite often. I call it the soul contract or the life contract. You're right.
That's what he calls a soul contract.
I do remove these different phrases, these different contractual obligations that we made on an etheric level, of course, And they do exist, and they do have validity when it comes to specific problems like that. And on the big scale, you have to have the authority on a spiritual level to be able to change these contracts. Not everybody can just go in and change it on your behalf. Otherwise, we'd be changing everybody's contract like crazy. So because of the level I'm doing my work, I am able to go in and actually change a soul agreement if it is a negative one.
Wow. Because he got me thinking a lot about that, and I actually did the work he suggested during our interview. And it really intrigued me. In fact, one of the things I try to do on this show is I bring in people who they're doing work that really intrigues me, so I can learn more. And but you have heard of that, because I've been wondering about that myself, because there are ideas out there, even if I can't prove that they're true, they resonate, and I know that guy was onto something. And when I read, he wrote a couple of very lengthy articles on it, and I said, I've got to interview this guy, and fortunately I was able to. So because I'm wondering if there might be something like that I don't know of, because and just like I said, because I've wondered, especially in certain areas of my life, I feel I'm kind of being blocked sometimes from things like prosperity, and it's a sense, and I think other people probably have this too, and maybe there are some kind of entities I'm not seeing. I don't know. I'm not saying that I don't have to. You still have to do the work. I mean, I want to be very clear on this. There are levels to this. I mean, but if you have someone who, for example, is going out constantly trying to meet women and has not been very successful, or someone who started a lot of businesses and hasn't been very successful, if you're doing the work and you're not getting the results, then you have to look at it if you're somehow being blocked, or if you're blocking yourself, or if there's some negative energy. And I think that's a very important idea too, because this energetic stuff, it goes in many directions, and physical is one of them, but it's also tied into the mental and the emotional. And just to kind of be clear on that, because I've often wondered, and that's probably one of the reasons I was very intrigued by your work, because I wonder if I'm being blocked in some ways, and I've often thought that.
Here's a very big thing to consider. Now, we all know about this thing called the secret, or the law of attraction.
Yes.
You can manifest things into your life. What I do is I consider the law of attraction, or the manifestation matrix, I call it, as part of your energy. So we all have this ability to manifest things. What if there's something negative within that law of attraction that is causing you to work backwards? You ask for something good, you get something bad. You try to make something happen, it blows up in your face. So I quite often will go into that manifestation matrix, and there's a few different areas of the law of attraction. There's a secret, there's a crystal body, there's a manifestation body that all kind of work together to take this quantum energy and to create and put in motion the scenario for you to get what you want. And it does work. There's a lot of people, they can just manifest stuff left, right, and center, where other people, they want prosperity, they're in the poor health all the time. They want a love of their life, they're lonely all the time. So I do go into that area of the energy in your body and clear that out also.
Sure. Well, I think that's very important, because that's something I really want to look at, because I can think of a friend of mine, who quite frankly, like I said, he's got lots of money, he's in very good shape, and and he's got a very successful love life, and he seems to very easily be able to manifest what he wants. I have a cousin like that who's a very wealthy man, and and like I said, and I'm often kind of compared negatively, especially to this cousin, my first cousin of mine. I got no resentment of him, but it kind of gets me a little frustrated sometimes. And like I said, you still have to do the work, because I think the secret is very, very good and very powerful. But what it does is it creates the opportunity. It's like if you really focus on what you want, you'll be given hints, but you still have to do the work of actually pursuing it. It's like a scavenger hunt. It's like, yes, you'll get a hint, but now you have to take the action of, like, going to the second spot, or digging the hole, or whatever the hint tells you to do in order to get the next hint. So it isn't
Absolutely.
like so it's both.
There's a story I like to tell. Sorry, Roger, I need to tell this story. There's a family in a house, and there's a flood. So they go on top of the roof, and Dad says, "God will save us." And all of a sudden, here comes a boat. And the guy in the boat says, get in. And Dad says, no, God will save us. Here comes the helicopter. Get in the helicopter. It's flooding. No, God will save us. So they all drown and die. They all go to heaven. Dad looks at God and says, how come he didn't save us? And God says, well, I sent a boat and a helicopter. So you have to
Exactly.
learn to watch for the hints, watch for the direction. And quite often that is our spirit guides involved in that are going to point you in the right direction. How do you think we get a thought? You're trying to solve a problem, okay? And it's like, you know, what is the answer to this? Here's an example. Last night, I've got one of these mosquito magnets. It's a $350 machine that runs on propane and it vacuums up mosquitoes. I live in Manitoba. We're infested with mosquitoes. So I go camping and I want to bring this thing with me. It's not working. And I'm looking at it. I'm trying to figure it out. You know, I'm from the printing industry. I can fix almost anything. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, what can the problem be? All of a sudden, I look at the propane hose, at the regulator, and the thought comes into my head, it's the propane regulator. So I did some work on it. Sure enough, that's what the problem was. How did I get that thought? I energetically asked a question, what is wrong with this device? And I was told, and I followed my intuition, and I was right.
Wow. Okay. Well, and that's very important. So it's like it's a cooperative process.